You know, I never thought I'd find myself actually reviewing a religious text on my channel, at least not for a while. But honestly, this one I've been wanting to talk about for a while, and now I finally have the chance to do so. Now, to those of you wondering, no, this will not be about the Bible itself. This will actually be about a somewhat lost book of the Bible, which is very popular, very well known, but I'm not sure a lot of people know the details about it. And to be quite honest, when I looked at this book, it was mostly for curiosity's sake. So, let's talk about it. Well, folks, the religious text I'll be talking about is the Book of Enoch the Prophet, specifically the one written by R.H. Charles. I was actually lucky enough to find this copy at one of my local bookstores, and to be honest, my main interest in Enoch was actually from him being mentioned throughout the Bible, specifically as someone who walked with God. But more importantly, it felt like something was missing, and when I came to find out that in fact Enoch's story, his whole book, that there was in fact even a Book of Enoch in the first place, but that it was actually written as non-canon to the Bible, that it was just written off, my interest actually became piqued just listening to that. And honestly, I wanted to see what all the fuss was about with the Book of Enoch itself. But honestly, after reading it, and keep in mind, this version was only like 139 pages worth, yet despite it being so short, it had a ton of information packed into it. For instance, the Book of Enoch actually talks about the coming apocalypse being the fall of humanity, but more importantly, the Great Flood, as shown in the story of Noah. But more than that, there was even glimpses of the coming of Jesus Christ. So apparently, Jesus was prophesied to appear way before the prophet Isaiah actually made that prediction. And to be quite honest, the fact that Enoch actually mentions this coming Savior was fascinating in its own right. But these were only minor details in some of the stuff that was actually covered. For instance, one of the major things that was covered that actually grabbed my attention was in fact the mentioning of the Watchers, the 20 fallen angels who came down and essentially sparked evil within God's creations. But not only that, but in fact the giants themselves, where they came from. And this answered so many questions of how humanity fell, but also where exactly the giants came from. But there is more than that. In fact, a vast majority of this book actually covers Enoch himself, but also his meetings with the four archangels, them being Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel. And honestly, just that alone really was interesting to read, especially when they show some of the things that are talked about here. Specifically, how Enoch earned that moniker of walked with God. And in fact, it actually says, or portrayed to me, that it looks as though Enoch himself actually traversed through the kingdom of heaven, seeing so many fantastic sights. But more than that, he actually saw the fates of the Watchers, as well as what could come for the fate of humanity. Not just the coming apocalypse, but also the coming of Jesus Christ. Hence, why this is brought up earlier. And honestly, there's a lot of fascinating context, but let's stick to the two main things that really stuck out to me in this book. So first up, the Watchers themselves. To be honest, when I first heard about the Watchers, specifically from the movie Noah, starring Russell Crowe, I was kind of fascinated. But now this, after reading the Book of Enoch, it actually makes a bit more sense. Because in my opinion, it didn't make sense that straight after Cain kills Abel, which was a major thing all on its own, but not only that, but a line of Seth, it didn't really make sense to me that humanity just somehow instantaneously fell to evil and corruption so quickly. And to be honest with you guys, this actually offers some context as to that, because while it does state that years and years go by as humanity becomes more and more corrupt, this actually shows the powder keg, the spark that caused their fall. And the ark and these angels, essentially these 20 fallen, the reason they descended to earth in the first place was because they were lusting after human women. And as it goes, lust leads to corruption, which leads to death. And honestly, the fact that these 20 fell taught humanity things they were probably never supposed to know, as well as not only that, but copulating with human women to create the giants themselves. It just shows how much chaos was sowed because of these 20. And in a way, it actually has the context of how and why humanity fell. Because we were taught things that essentially led to our own destruction, forbidden secrets that were not meant to be told. And to be honest, that offers a very unique context. It finds a different party, rather than just humanity fell because we are attracted to evil, which, to be fair, in reality, we are prone to do evil things. It's a simple fact of our makeup. It has been taught to us through religious doctrine, but also through real-life circumstances that humanity falls. But in this case, it offers a unique way and a unique perspective of looking at it. Now, the second point is the giants themselves. And oh my god, I cannot tell you guys how much this actually makes sense. Because to be honest with you guys, when I was reading through the Bible, and all of a sudden the giants just happened to appear, like literally, in the book with Moses, it describes how there is literally a whole country of giants lurking around. Not to mention, as well, the ever-famous David and Goliath. But it honestly had me wondering, where did these giants come from? And the Book of Enoch actually offers a bit of context, saying, hey, the giants were actually the offspring of fallen angels and human women. And to me, honestly, that makes a lot of sense of how they seem so unnatural, how they seem to be larger than normal men, but also how they seem so much more powerful, and more importantly, it offers a sense of where they came from. Honestly, you guys, this book really answered a lot of questions when it came to the giants especially, but also it makes another thing clear. God not only had to deal with the corruption of man, but he had to deal with the threat of the giants due to the actions of his fallen angels and their threats to the only pure souls of humanity that remained left, aka the line of the third son of Adam and Eve, Seth. And to be quite honest, that offers a unique concept of God wanting to save humanity by essentially destroying the corruption and just wiping the slate clean, scrubbing out the filth that had polluted his creation. And this, the giants themselves, how they were a threat to humankind. And not only that, but also the Watchers themselves, shows that context of God wanting to protect what remains of his pure creation, after all the corruption has settled in, all the chaos and everything else. And this, right here, opened up that gateway. But then, of course, there is also the unique deliberation of whether the Book of Enoch would be considered canon or not. Or more importantly, should it be considered canon? And to be quite honest with you guys, I believe that is a matter of perspective. Because even though this book was actually considered a lost book of the Bible, or at least considered non-canon to the main story of the Bible, it kind of leaves you wondering what else was left out. Like, this book actually answered a couple of questions of mine that I had lingering in the back of my head in regards to after reading the Bible. It offers some unique context. Not to mention, it also shows Enoch for who he was. It ends up showing more of the man rather than just the acronym of he walked with God, which he literally did by journeying with the archangels themselves, and seeing just what was to come, as well as seeing the kingdom of heaven itself. It really offers that perspective of Enoch walking with God. In other words, walking with his four archangels. Not only that, but it also shows that Enoch knew what was coming, and he was prepared. But all in all, I do say that Enoch was a fascinating character in his own right. Now, if you were to ask me, would I consider the Book of Enoch canon? The simple answer would be, I don't know. But I'll leave this up for you all to decide after reading this, and I hope my review of this actually helps to spark some unique questions, or at least opens up your curiosity to see it for yourself. But for that being said, let me go and show you all my personal score for this book. So all in all, I'd have to give the Book of Enoch, at the very least, a solid 9 out of 10, due to the fact that it did answer a few questions that I had had in regards to the Bible, and it offered some unique context, not to mention it also highlighted more on Enoch as he was as a man and as a person, as well as it offers more of just what was going on during the time of Genesis. To be honest with you guys, again, it is up to you guys whether you choose to believe that Enoch is canon to the Bible story or not. And Lord, does that feel weird to say. But overall, I believe it is a matter of perspective. But if you yourself are curious like me to actually see what this book contains, I would actually encourage your curiosity. And once again, you guys, thank you once again for listening to this crazy man's ramblings. If you did like this video, feel free to leave a like or a comment down below. And if you have any other suggestions for books for me to review, please let me know that as well. I'm always up for a good challenge. Anyways, you guys, thank you so much for listening again. This is Rambling Collector, signing off. Have an awesome day, and keep reading.